What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Shu Shu. Hopefully you guys are having a phenomenal Thursday. If you guys are tuning in and maybe it's a Friday, hopefully you guys are off to a great Friday as well. So, yes, this is the very first episode that's now also going to be streaming on Facebook. I plan on doing that now going forward. So, yes, if you are tuning in on X, on YouTube, or Facebook, I appreciate you guys all for tuning in, regardless of the platform. Now, I want to make sure we got the audio going right real quick. 1 second. All right, we're good to go. So, with that being said, though, tonight I'll be going through a lot of stuff. We're going to get into a fight preview of the fights going down tomorrow on Friday, as well as also the fight preview of the fights going down this weekend on Saturday. On top of that, I also plan on getting into a lot of boxing news of what's gone down over the past few days since I was live last. So we'll be getting into all of that throughout the duration of today's show. With that being said, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button for me. I always appreciate that. Likewise, if you're also tuning in on Facebook or X, make sure to share it, like, comment, all this stuff. I definitely appreciate that as well. And then on top of that, keep the chat active tonight. Any questions or topics you guys have for me in the chat, I'll make sure to pull those comments up on the screen so you guys can discuss it as well. So let's get right to it, though. Lots of stuff to get into tonight's show. We're going to kick it off with a fight preview of what's going down in Dubai tomorrow, or I guess for some people, I guess it's already on the current day for them. But the main event, a heavyweight fight going down, Kubrat Pulev versus Murat Gassiev, heavyweight showdown going down. Now, this is an interesting fight. All right. We all know that this is very interesting. Obviously, a belt is on the line in this fight, and we're featuring some of the oldest fighters in boxing. For Kubrat Pulev, he is 30-3 with 14 KOs on his career. He's also an orthodox fighter, standing at 6'4", 79-inch reach, and he's 44 years of age with a 47% KO ratio. While the man he's stepping in the ring with, Murat Gassiev, he is 32-1 with a 25 KOs in his career. Orthodox fighter, standing 6'3", 76-inch reach, and he's 32 years of age with 76% KO ratio. For Pulev, he is a veteran Bulgarian fighter, obviously been in the business for a very, very long time. He's challenged for a world championship twice. He currently now holds his other belt. He's fought Klitschko and Anthony Joshua in the ring previously. Now, he's known for his jab, his toughness, and obviously quite experienced, being that of him being 44 years old. While Gassiev, he is former unified cruiserweight champion, moved up now to heavyweight, explosive power, aggressive, and he's got a youthful advantage, although he's not very young, but he does have that youthful advantage. Now, who do I have winning this fight? I'm going to go with the younger man. I think Gassiev's going to come out here. He's going to win this fight. That's who I've got winning the heavyweight belt right here. When you talk about the situation, Pulev, he is 44 years of age. Not saying you can't do it. We have seen George Foreman. We've seen countless guys do it before him. But when we talk about this, come on now. It's not the most entertaining fight in the world, but I do have him coming out victorious. I think Gassiev will have this championship. He'll win it, and we'll move on from there. On the undercard, though, we do have some other interesting fights going down. Vadim Musa fighting Tulani Mbenge. Welterweight fight going down right here. IBO champion is Tulani Mbenge. Obviously, he's not recognized as the world championship per se, but still is a world champion to a certain extent. Now, those two guys will be fighting each other. The winner should position themselves within the top 5 or 3 within a commissioning body. So keep an eye on that one. It's going to be huge. Also, Maxi Hughes makes his return at the lightweight division on this card as well. So that's what we got going down in Dubai. Obviously, it's a solid card, not the best card in the world, but that's what's going down in Dubai. Then let's go back over stateside on Saturday. Badou Jack, Noel Mikaelian. This is an interesting fight. All right. So we have a cruiserweight showdown going down here. When we rewind back in time, and these guys had the very first fight, I was baffled that Badou Jack won the fight. I was shocked that he won the fight, and it ended up turning out that so were a lot of people in the world, so much so to the fact they had to do a rematch automatically mandate to occur again. So yes, the WBC cruiserweight title is back on the line in this fight. They're going to rematch each other. For Badou Jack, he's the oldest tied for the oldest world champion in all boxing right now. He is 29 years. He's 29-3-3 in his career, 17 KOs, orthodox fighter, standing at 6'1", 73-inch reach advantage. And on top of that, he's 42 years of age with a 47% KO ratio. While Noel, he is 27-3 with 12 KOs, orthodox, 6'2". He's got 75-inch reach, 35 years of age, 44% KO ratio. So you know what that means? Odds are very, very high that we're not going to see a KO in this fight. Like we did not see in the first one. I don't think we're going to see it again. Now, let's revisit that fight they had earlier this year. So when these two guys fought, it was a situation where it was a fine fight, but I thought Noel won that fight clearly. Maybe whether it be by 2 or 3 rounds, debatable. I think it was 2. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was 2 rounds I had him up. And Badou Jack somehow emerged victorious in this fight. Not even a draw, but he emerged victorious. So that's what happened in the very first fight. Now, we're going to go into this situation here where for Badou Jack, obviously the best days of Badou Jack are behind him. He's no longer prime Badou Jack. Obviously, that's not the man anymore, being at 42 years of age. He's a former 2-division world champion, super middleweight and light heavyweight, now the WBC cruiserweight champion. He's obviously veteran, he's crafty and very durable. While the German, Noel, he's an Armenian contender, solid fundamentals, but less proven at the elite level. Now, that being said, we have seen him against Badou Jack, and I'd say he looked quite fine in that fight. So we'll see what happens here, but my prediction here is this. I thought Noel won the first fight. And this rematch, I do have Noel winning this fight as well. I think his toughness is going to help him give himself the victory here. And I think Badou's Jack experience will help him to some extent. But unless he makes massive changes to what happened in that first fight, I just don't see him emerging victorious. He's only gotten older since that fight. Yes, he's got the ring IQ. Yes, he's got those aspects. But Noel Mikaelian had him figured out in that first fight. I think he will be emerged victorious. And this is really why this is a big deal. Like, let's be honest right now, okay? This fight, and for some reason, is pay-per-view. I don't know who the heck's going to buy it. I don't even know where you buy it at. But this fight is going to be a pay-per-view fight. Baffling, right? It doesn't matter. All right? Enjoy the fight for what it is. What matters most about this fight is what happens after the fight. All right, so Jai Opetaia, we talked about him already. He won last week, obviously dominant fashion did his job. He's looking for a unification. We know Zurdo Ramirez is not going to be fighting him next. Obviously, he's fighting David Benavidez on Cinco de Mayo weekend. So Jai Opetaia, I've said this before, he either needs Chris Smith or he needs to win this fight next. If he cannot get one of those two fights, it is time to move up to heavyweight. I've been very clear about this. And this is why all eyes need to be on this fight. Because the winner of this fight will likely have an opportunity to unify with Jai Opetaia, meaning they're going to have a nice payday and also a bad beatdown. So we'll see what happens here. But when you're talking about these two guys, either one of them that steps foot in the ring with Jai Opetaia is going to lose. What matters most is who's going to get a nice little payday to go fight Jai Opetaia. So that's what I'm keeping my eyes on, because if one of these, whoever wins this fight, in my eyes, they need to go forth and they need to go fight Jai Opetaia next. That's what I think is going to have to happen, and we'll see if that ends up coming to fruition. Then, also on Saturday, a matchroom card is going down. Diego Pacheco headlines this one, fighting Kevin Lele Sadjo. This is going to be a fight that's very intriguing. This is the perfect way to build Diego Pacheco up. And I know people have been saying for quite some time, go challenge for a world championship, this, that, and the third. And Matchroom's doing it right. Diego Pacheco is one of the youngest, contenders that are elite in all boxing right now. Let him take his time. And this is the perfect build-up process. Right here's the fight I've been wanting to see, and I love it. Him fighting Kevin Lele Sadjo, super middleweight fight. For Diego Pacheco, never lost. Clean slate, 22-0, 18 of those wins coming by way of knockout. Orthodox fighter standing at 6'4", 78-inch reach. He's 24 years of age with 82% KO ratio. Kevin Lele Sadjo, he is 24-1 with 20 KOs. Orthodox fighter standing at 5'9", 70-inch reach, 34 years of age, 83% KO ratio. All right, Pacheco. I've talked about this before. I'm extremely high on this man. And at 168, we are at a position right now where we're looking at everybody at 168, and it's always been what's going to happen post Canelo. Canelo obviously lost. Now Terence Bud Crawford has had, I should say, all the belts. One of them are now open, but we're always looking at who's going to become the next guy at 168. This man right here is the man that has a chance of doing so. Now, there's a lot of guys that we have intrigue in at 168, but Diego Pacheco is one of those guys. But the only way that we can proclaim him as potentially the next world champion at 168, or at least one of them, is if he goes out there and does his job on Saturday night. When you talk about him, he's very young. Kevin Lele Sadjo is going to have the age advantage, the experience advantage. He has more fights on his resume, so on and so forth. So this is going to be the toughest test of Diego Pacheco's career. He is a young man. He's tall and rangy. Anybody that's seen the face-off that they had earlier this week, we'll see more of it coming up in the next couple of days. There is a clear height advantage. I just said this. Kevin Lele Sadjo is only 5'9", while Diego Pacheco is 6'4". There is going to be a massive height advantage here. And so if I'm Diego Pacheco, you have a very clear game plan of what to do in this fight. Utilize your distance. I wasn't too impressed with the Trevor McCumbee fight. Now, Trevor McCumbee is a tricky fighter, and he made it a little bit interesting in that fight. And so he got out with the win. It was a tough, brutal fight, but Diego Pacheco did just enough to get that win in that fight. He cruised through it, but it just was it wasn't the best showing, but he got the win. That's all that matters. This moment for him right here, the toughest opponent, experienced man. If he can control the distance, this fight will be an easy fight for himself. When you have, 6-7 inches apart between the two of them, that is something you need to utilize to your advantage. We've seen the way Rafael Espinoza has done it. We've seen the way Fundora does it, so on and so forth. In this situation, when you're fighting a guy this much smaller than you, utilize your height and your length and your jab. If he's able to do so, Diego Pacheco should easily emerge from this fight. He has good power, not the most powerful man in the world, also very technically sound. But for Sadjo, if you're not familiar with him, he is a French puncher, compact and aggressive, high KO ratio. So if you want to go to war with him, not the best man to do so with. He is shorter, less versatile, but as I said, he has that power. And this is why I emphasize this. For Pacheco, if he goes out there and properly utilizes his jab, controls the distance, this is not going to be a difficult fight for himself. You cannot let Kevin Lele Sadjo get in close to you. You cannot let him get into the pocket. Utilize your jab. It doesn't have to be entertaining. I know, as a lot of boxing fans would say, go out there, make a statement. If you can do so, great. But we just saw Lamont Roach last weekend. Lamont Roach could have utilized his ability, his technically sound skill, his ring IQ, but he chose not to. If you're Diego Pacheco, just get to this fight, get the win, and it should be easy. Control the distance. So what do I have happening here? I think Pacheco wins this fight, whether it be by knockout or by decision, which is my guess. This is going to be a position where Diego Pacheco must go out there and get the job done. Sadjo will be dangerous early, but he should get tired out, burnt out. Pacheco's size, reach, and youth should lead him to a victory here. So that's who I've got winning. I think Diego Pacheco will emerge victorious. And if he controls the job and he's wise in that ring, it won't be a difficult fight for him. Co-main event. This one has a lot of implications on it as well. Joe Cordina fighting Gabriel Flores Jr. Before I break it down, let me tell you about those implications. So, Flores Cordina has been announced now as the winner in line for a title shot. The WBO ruled at their latest convention that Abdullah Mason must face a mandatory within 180 days. That means that the winner of Saturday's Gabriel Flores-Joe Cordina fight is expected to be ranked the number one contender in the WBO, forcing Abdullah Mason to go out there and face him next. So, this is going to be a fight that has a lot of stakes on it. A world championship implications. For Cordina or Gabriel Flores, they're going to go out there and fight the young man, the youngest world champion in all boxing in 2026 with the Abdullah Mason. So keep that in mind. Now let's break it down. For Joe Cordina, 17-0, never lost in his career, 9 KOs. He's an orthodox fighter standing at 5'9", 69-inch reach, 30 years of age, 53% KO ratio. Gabriel Flores, 23-3. He's got 7 KOs, orthodox fighter, 5'9", 69-inch reach, 25 years of age, 30% KO ratio. So if you're looking for a knockout, obviously it's not the best fight for that. For Cordina, though, he is the former IBF super featherweight champion, great technique. He's a sharp jab, strong ring IQ. For Gabriel Flores, American prospect, talented but inconsistent, and has losses to top competition. Who do I win this fight? I think Joe Cordina wins this. Gabriel Flores is solid, not a threat to knock you out. And for Cordina, I think he's the more skilled fighter. So when you put those two things together, it's going to be a tough outing for Gabriel Flores. I think Cordina comes out victorious by decision. Flores is skilled, but Cordina is better. He's got more composure. He's more precise. I think it will be a clear win. I really don't see it being that competitive, meaning this sets us up in 2026 for Abdullah Mason, Joe Cordina to fight for the world championship. So keep that in mind. This fight has a lot of implications on it. For Abdullah Mason, this is going to be who he's fighting next. Keep that in mind this weekend. Other fights going down on this matchroom card include Ernesto Mercado fighting Antonio Moran, super lightweight fight. Very intriguing fight right there as well. And then Sky Nicholson, she makes her return against Juliana Luna Villa, women's super bantamweight fight going down right there. Other notable fights going down this weekend, Kevin Brown versus Cletus Selden, and then Jonas Tellez fighting Kendro Castaneda. He's making his return for Tellez, obviously coming off his loss earlier this year. So that's the fight going down this weekend. So that concludes the fight preview that we've got going down for this weekend. Nowhere near what it's been the past couple of weekends, but still, good fights nonetheless. So let me know your guys' thoughts. Who do you guys have winning some of these fights this weekend? Which fight are you most excited for? Leave it in the chat, and I'll make sure to get back to you guys as well. But with that being said, it's time to transition now into some boxing topics. Now, this is not news in which I'm going to kick this portion of the show off, I should say, with, but I want to bring this up because I think it's time. There's been rumblings for however many years now of Jaron Boots Ennis and Terrence Bud Crawford. Now, before I get ahead of myself, and I know some people will have mixed opinions on this, let me make this very clear. I understand why Terrence Bud Crawford would not want to fight Jaron Boots Ennis. From a financial reason, from a what makes sense for his career reason, and sure, of course, there's a risk there as well. I understand all that. But from a boxing fan perspective, how would I not want to see Terrence Bud Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis fight each other? When you talk about American boxing, this is one of those situations where you say the current great and maybe, just maybe, the future of American boxing. Both fighting each other in the ring when both guys are obviously at a high level of skill and talent. This would be a fight that I think every fan would love to see. It would be a massive, massive fight to make. Now, as I said, does it make sense to happen right now? Probably not. But can I throw out there a proposition for you guys? If Jaron Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz do end up facing each other in 2026, and Jaron Boots Ennis emerges victorious from that fight with Vergil Ortiz, does that then make his name big enough to fight Terrence Bud Crawford? In my honest opinion, I think you can start considering that. When you look at Terrence Bud Crawford's options, 160 is a complete mess right now. You have a Canelo rematch, sure, that's on the table. And hypothetically, a 175 fight could happen in a way as well. But from a financial standpoint, outside of the Canelo fight, Jaron Boots Ennis Terrence Bud Crawford is probably the second biggest fight that Terrence Bud Crawford could make at this point of his career if Jaron Boots Ennis beats Vergil Ortiz. And so I'm just going to throw it out there because I do believe every boxing fan would love that fight, especially stateside here in the United States of America. And I know we've had rumblings for a long time, but let's be honest. If this fight comes to fruition, it would do massive numbers. And you can make a legitimate case that if Boots Ennis beats Vergil Ortiz next year, this quickly becomes one of, if not the biggest fight to make in boxing. Because you already have the history behind the two of them. You've had a lot of trash talk, and you talk about the future and the present stars of boxing in America. Who would not want to see that fight? So hopefully, if all goes according to plan, we could see Jaron Boots Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz, Jaron Boots Ennis versus Terrence Bud Crawford in 2026. I think that would be one of the biggest fights to make in boxing. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Would you guys want to see that fight? And if so, who do you have winning that fight? I will say this actually to answer my own question right there. If they were to fight, I would still favor Terrence Bud Crawford. I don't think anybody within reason of Terrence Bud Crawford fighting right now would beat Terrence Bud Crawford. He molly whoops every single guy at 160. He would destroy everybody at 154. And you talk about guys at 168, we saw Canelo, and nobody else at 168 is ready to face him. Now, 175, I think that's interesting. You could go the route because there is a vacant belt that's going to be fought for very near future at 175. Maybe you go that route. But if you fight Bivol, obviously that's a very intriguing fight, but I think Bivol maybe has a size advantage and experience. That gets interesting. David Benavidez would be a very tough fight. I don't know how that fight would go right there. Same with Artur Beterbiev. So I don't know if 175 makes sense. But 168 and below, Terrence Bud Crawford would beat them all in my eyes. But let me know your guys' thoughts. Who would Terrence Bud Crawford, or who would win the fight between Terrence Bud Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis? Conor Walker, coming off a massive win this past weekend against Pat McCormick, he's now vacated that British title fight. He relinquished the British welterweight title following his win over Pat McCormick. Interesting. Now, let me explain this a little bit more. That means the Commonwealth champion, Konstantin Urso, is expected to face an opponent to be determined for the vacant championship. Why would Conor Walker do this? Well, to be honest, I think he's going to make the world stage jump. Conor Walker's been a warrior. He's fought many great fights. I told you guys that fight was going to be incredible last week, and it was. I think he's lining himself up to go fight a big fight, whether that be a title eliminator, that be a big British fight, maybe even, and you're talking 147, it's not a very good weight class, a lot of openings. You could position himself for a world championship fight if you are going against a guy like Lewis Crocker or someone along those lines. Just throwing it out there, not saying it's going to happen, but that's what I think is going to happen. I do think Conor Walker makes that jump, though, to the world stage. Claressa Shields, she announced that she will be defending her undisputed heavyweight world titles in a rematch with Franchon Crews-Dezurn on February 22nd in Detroit, Michigan. Obviously, we know what's going to happen in that fight. At this point in time, Claressa Shields, I think, is the best woman in all boxing. Katie Taylor's right there with her. I get the debate. I'm just saying the 1-2, 1A, 1B, however you want to put it. I don't think anybody will ever beat Claressa Shields unless somebody moves up or somehow this happens, she moves down. There's no fight, no competition. So this fight, let me just tell you right now, who's going to win? Claressa Shields. There's not much to discuss. We don't really need the rematch. Sure, it might be a nice build-up process. Shields will go out there and win that fight. Not going to be difficult. Here's a topic I really want to dive into. I'm excited for it. I'm going to break down what's happened because I was live on Monday's show. Today is now Thursday, maybe Friday for yourself. A lot has happened between these two guys over the past few days, and then we got breaking news coming out tonight. That's not good news. So let's break it down. I just was going to throw this out there. First and foremost, Richardson Hitchins has now signed a new deal back with Matchroom. Remember, he was a free agent. There was a lot of weird controversy happening inside the ring after his last fight. It made no sense to myself or anybody listening to that, but whatever. Now it's been confirmed that Hitchins, Eddie Hearn, and his manager, Keith Connolly, have now reunited. They got a deal locked in. He's back with Matchroom. Here's that quote. We're back together in 2026. Will be a huge year. More millions in mega fights to be made. So, all right. Then we go to the press conference with Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez that went down on Wednesday. And these two guys get back and forth going after it. All right. You would think that when you're on X and social media, going back and forth with each other over and over and over again, and then you meet up in person and you have a face off, you have this trash talk, you have all these things, that you would probably have an idea that you might be trying to lock in a fight. So what happens? They do end up discussing a fight. And they made this trash talk comment saying, we're going to fight each other next year. I'm going to take your belt because you know you're not better than me. Next year, 2026, I'm something you boy up in Norfolk. That is what Keyshawn Davis said to Richardson Hitchins. And I was going to have a whole segment about why this fight's going to be massive. But here's the deal now. And this came out just a little bit ago, about 2 hours ago. It's baffling. The Richardson Hitchins versus Keyshawn Davis fight never materialized because Hitchins wanted a minimum of $2.5 million. And Keyshawn Davis, well, he wanted a minimum of $2 million to fight each other. All right. That was never going to happen. Keyshawn Davis and Richardson Hitchins was supposed to be a mega fight in 2026. You can make a debate of whether or not Keyshawn Davis deserves the world championship shot right now. Throw that out the window. This is a boxing business. And when you have a business in place, Keyshawn Davis, Richardson Hitchins sells great. This is the fight we want to see. We're all asking, who should Hitchins fight next? Keyshawn Davis is the answer. But now we come to find out that Hitchins wants $2.5 million. Keyshawn Davis wants $2 million. We have to be realistic, though. While this fight is mega, this is a fight that would be great for boxing fans. We all want to see it. This is not the type of fight that generates somebody $2.5 million and the other man $2 million. That's unrealistic. If that were your expectations heading into the negotiations, you were never going to get a deal done. So why even enter negotiations? And this is the problem. We look at a situation where Turkey Al-Sheikh's paying these guys a lot of money. If Turkey's not involved, these big paydays are not going to happen for everybody. And let's be honest, while both these guys have big names, Keyshawn Davis screwed the bag up on June 7th in Norfolk, Virginia. Richardson Hitchins is not the biggest name in all boxing. There is no way anybody was ever going to get paid that much money to make this fight happen. Never. Maybe cut that in half and you're still getting a little bit debatable right there. So this fight was not going to happen underneath those terms. But that's a shame because Richardson Hitchins and Keyshawn Davis has to happen at some point in time. You talk about two American fighters that both obviously have a solid following and brand, two guys that are very, very good, talented fighters as well. This is the type of fight that American boxing continues to need to make happen. And there's no reason this fight does not happen. Whether it is early, mid, or late 2026, we need to see these two guys fight, whether that's going to be at 140 or even one day at 147. These two guys need to step foot in the ring. And listen, it has to be under realized and understandable terms. If they want that much money to fight, Hitchins being $2.5 million, Keyshawn being $2 million, then guess what? You guys are going to have to wait quite some time for that fight to build up even more. Hopefully, you guys both keep winning fights. And at that point in time, maybe you can make that fight happen. But if you're demanding that much money with the positions both guys are currently at, there's no way in God's green earth you're going to get that much money for that fight. It's baffling to me that they even suggested it. But that's fight. All the hype is now. Just put all the cold water on it. It's done for now. If these guys don't want to get reasonable in terms of negotiations, we're not seeing that fight happen. So I propose this question to you. Who in the world does Richardson Hitchins fight next? If Keyshawn Davis is out the window now, mark him off. I have two names for you. Number one, Adam Azim. Adam Azim is a man who is a rising prospect from the UK. I am very, very high on this man. I think he's a very good fighter, and I think he's earned himself. He's now in the top 5 of the ranking bodies. He could position himself for Hitchins. When you look at the guys all ranked right now for Hitchins, he probably makes the most sense. And you could do that fight possibly even in the UK. Now, he does have the whole boxer BBC contract thing, which is going to screw him up a lot, but maybe you can get that fight done. And if you can, great fight to make happen. If that doesn't happen, I think the biggest issue there is that him and Ben Shalom boxer is a disaster. It's going to be very hard to make any deal with that man happen. But besides that point, let me throw this other option out there. And I'm only saying this, not saying that he necessarily deserves it yet, but I'm just throwing it out there because he made a big statement fight this past weekend on a Saturday, and he's a good big name. You could have a nice payday. Who am I talking about? Frank Martin. Now, I get it. A lot of people say he just moved to 140. He'd be an older 38-year-old man, runs his phenylmine this past weekend. Does that really get him ready for a world championship shot? Not necessarily. But this is boxing. This is a business. Look at the rankings currently. Actually, let me pull it up for you guys, just so you guys understand, because I know I made this comment on, I think it was on TikTok, I was going back and forth with somebody, and they all said, why would Frank Martin deserve a world championship shot? And I said this, well, 140 does not have the best of names in contention for Richard Hitchins. Here's the names right here. You have one, Lindolfo Delgado. He is currently ranked number 1. They've already had discussions there. We've talked about that beforehand. Number 2 is not ranked. Then you have Oscar Duarte, which I do think he could deserve that. Obviously would be there, but I don't think Hitchins takes that fight for his defense. Then you have a man, Artur Biaslavnov. Pretty much nobody knows him. You're not going to get that fight made right there. Then you have Adam Azim at number 5. That makes a lot of sense. You go down the list, Gabriel Valenzuela, Kenneth Sims Jr. obviously just fought Oscar Duarte. He's not going to get that shot. Jermaine Ortiz, they already said the fight is not going to happen. I thought that was the one to go with originally. That's off the table now. Elvis Rodriguez, Ernesto Mercado's fighting this weekend. John Manu, Michael Rivera, Pierce O'Leary, Brayon Gorham, Antonio Vaccarnay. None of those fights make a lot of sense for Hitchins to fight. So if you don't have a lot of big names, you're going to go defend against somebody. Couldn't you understand why I say Frank Martin there? Now, what happens in that ring? I think Hitchins wins that fight, but Frank Martin does have power, makes it interesting, good build-up process. So we'll see what happens there. But yes, my blueprint for Hitchins would be this. Make the Keyshawn Davis fight happen. If it's not on the table, go Adam Azim. If that's too difficult to make happen, give Frank Martin a shot. Why not? I'd be all for seeing that fight happen. Let's go into now Zuffa Boxing. So obviously Dana White's into boxing now. We saw a little bit of a preview with the Canelo Bud Crawford fight, but it's not really all Zuffa Boxing, but it is what it is. Now we have official date. When Zuffa Boxing actually comes to fruition, it will be in 2026. Here's the details. Mark Shapiro has revealed that Zuffa Boxing is planning its first show as part of its new venture with Paramount Plus starting January 23rd. The day before TKO launches their new UFC deal, UFC 324, which is the debut for a Paramount deal for UFC, on Paramount Plus on January 24th. So we're going to get boxing and then UFC the following day. You have to wonder what his slap thing is going to do, but whatever. But anyways, Zuffa Boxing kicks off January 23rd. What do I expect? I've got no idea. We've got no fight announcements. I got no idea, but I am intrigued. I've said this all along. Do I truly believe in everything that Dana White's saying? Do I agree with everything he's doing for boxing? Absolutely not. I don't agree with everything everybody does. But guess what? He's obviously done a great work with the UFC. He's going to be in boxing. I'm intrigued. What happens? I don't know, but I'm going to be excited to see it. I'm not going to bash it until I see what happens. There's nothing to judge on him yet, except for the Muhammad Ali Act thing, but whatever. But in terms of him and Zuffa Boxing, there's nothing to judge about him yet. So I'm going to be patient, wait and see, and we'll see. Maybe this time next year I can give an accurate appreciation or slam him for what he's doing with Zuffa Boxing. So we'll see what happens there. But yes, Zuffa Boxing and Dana White's boxing debut begins officially January 23rd on Paramount Plus. Going over to women's boxing for a moment, Caroline Dubois, she's now signed with Jake Paul's Most Valuable Promotions. MVP has now confirmed that Caroline Dubois, the WBC lightweight champion, has signed a promotion deal with Jake Paul's company. Great news for her. Massive congratulations. Obviously, I think what Jake Paul is doing for women's boxing is magnificent. Nobody's doing more for women's boxing than Jake Paul. He adds another star to his resume and his roster. Good for them. All right. Here is big news, though. I already talked about Boots Ennis a little bit ago in regards to Bud Crawford. Here's where it gets interesting, though. Here's the fight we all do truly know needs to happen next, which is Boots Ennis fighting Vergil Ortiz Jr. Here's the new details. The negotiations between these two men started yesterday. Now, this was as of Wednesday, so I think it was Tuesday negotiations. And the first meeting took 6 hours. They are targeting a March date. Both teams are moving to get a deal done, close to getting a deal done within the next 10 days. This would be huge. Listen, if we can get John Boots Ennis, Vergil Ortiz, this is the fight that needs to happen. I've been very, very big and bold on making sure this happens. We need this fight to go down in 2026, so that's great news. Already negotiations. Hopefully they can put all the bogus stuff aside, all the politics, and just give the fans the fight they want. Both guys are going to make a lot of money. I don't think they have to worry about that. Nobody's walking away ripped off in terms of financially. They're both going to get paid nicely. The promoters, the fighters, everybody's going to get paid. So make the fight happen. Here's an interesting thing, and I'll be honest, this next topic I'm going to get into, it was a little bit shocking to me, and then I sat back and I realized it. I'm like, okay, it's not that shocking, but still, it's very interesting. That's why I really want to hear you guys' thoughts. Let me know in the chat. It's the Jack Catterall situation. So let me give you guys the details of what happened, then I want to know your guys' thoughts on it. So if you don't know about it, Jack Catterall, obviously coming off of a massive win against Echo Estiman a couple weeks ago on the Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn rematch undercard, and Catterall has now been offered to fight Lewis Crocker for a world championship. Okay, that sounds great. At first, you'd say, you'd be a fool to turn that down. You get a world championship shot. Well, Jack Catterall has turned the fight down. Here's what happened. Manager Jack Catterall, Sam Jones, has revealed that Catterall received an offer to fight Lewis Crocker. The offer was turned down due to the money being less than what he has received for both the Estiman and Harlem Eubank fight. It would have been his smallest purse in 7 fights. Sam Jones, who is his manager, says this. Sometimes someone tells Silly Nelson, talking about Billy Nelson, who trains Lewis Crocker, the money offered was less than Jack's last 6 fights. Jack is being very reasonable. Crocker is the A side, yes, because he's the champion. But Jack is a much bigger name, which I do agree about. I don't think anybody's really that high on Lewis Crocker. I think he was one of the first guys to ever somehow lose 2 fights and still become world champion. That's a topic for another time. We've already discussed that. But anyways, Jack Catterall then went on X and he said this. I'd love to fight Lewis Crocker in his backyard. I'm ready to sign for that fight today. So essentially what went down here is Jack Catterall was offered a fight for a world championship. I think every boxer should jump at that opportunity and take it. But he turned that down because he's not going to get paid as much as he's been paid in the previous fights. And essentially he's saying this, I can take another defense, or not a defense, I can take another tune-up fight or a fight, and I'm going to make more money doing that than I will to go fight for a world championship against Lewis Crocker. All right. This is what we talk about when I say boxing business. It's very important to understand this. A lot of fans don't want to understand this part of boxing. Why does a guy like Bakhmut Murtavaliev go over a year without fighting? Because he's a dangerous fighter, but he brings in no money. If you don't bring in money, a lot of boxers are going to say, you know what? At the end of the day, 99.9999% of boxers are in the sport for money. They're not in it just for legacy. Some are both, but for the most part, guys are in it for money. Let's be honest, right? And so when guys look at these type of fighters, they say, okay, I'm here to make money. If I cannot make money with you here, and I'll maybe sacrifice a little bit, if I can't make enough money, I'm not taking it. That's what Jack Catterall is in. And so here's what I want to propose. What is your guys' thoughts on this? Because it's very controversial. I honestly do see both sides. I don't have a firm stance. But what would you do? Would you take the world championship fight while being paid less than you've been paid over your past 6 fights? Or would you go out there and say, you know what? I'm going to turn down a world championship fight. And what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go out there and fight for a lot more money against some other dude just to go fight to fight. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. I'm not sure what you guys would do. I think it's a very interesting predicament Jack Catterall is in. If I had to make a choice, though, here's where I would go. If I were Jack Catterall, I would negotiate and say, you know what? I'm willing to take a small takeoff of what I've been paid, maybe even being the less I've been paid for a purse in the past 2 or 3 fights. If I'm able to get paid a solid amount of money and still fight for a world championship, I'm taking that deal, no questions asked. But if the drop-off is too much for Jack Catterall, you cannot fault the man for not wanting to do a world championship fight. Because Jack Catterall knows this. Jack Catterall knows that he's skilled and good enough to possibly win a world championship at 147. And if Jack Catterall can do so, he's going to likely wait out to go fight for a world championship when he get paid a lot more money. And so if you're Jack Catterall, I'm not going to fault him for turning down the Lewis Crocker fight. Unless he's turning it down and he wants to be paid the most in that fight. If all he wants to get done is get paid just a little bit less than Lewis Crocker, but still get paid a decent amount, I'm thinking you need to go out there and take that fight. Go become a world champion. Obviously, it'd be huge for your resume, your legacy, and you're going to make more money on the back end of this. And I think Jack Catterall easily beats Lewis Crocker. I don't think it's even a competitive fight. So that's what I would do if I'm Jack Catterall. But let me know your guys' thoughts. What would you do in this situation? All right. Big news for a man, for one of the Charlo brothers. That is Jermall Charlo. He has now officially announced that he has reunited with his former trainer, Ronnie Shields. All right. Ronnie was on the show, man, what was it now? 3 or 4 months ago. Great interview. Great guy. I love talking to him. But man, actually I think it was 4th of July actually we had him on. So that's actually been like 6 months ago. That's crazy. But for this situation, Jermall Charlo, he was with Ronnie Shields for a long time. They had a weird parting in a sense, and now they're back together. If I'm Jermall Charlo, perfect move. Get back with Ronnie Shields. If you are Jermall Charlo, Ronnie Shields and you were perfect together. There was no reason they ever separated, no reason they ever split. If you're Jermall Charlo and you want to get back to where you once were or anywhere near that, the right move was to go with Ronnie Shields. Ronnie Shields is one of the best trainers in all boxing. What he does is phenomenal. His resume has proven that. And if you're Jermall Charlo and you really want to get yourself ready to go at a high level, competing back at where you once were once upon a time, reuniting with Ronnie Shields is exactly what you need to do. And I think this move right here, we could possibly see glimpses of the old Charlo if he can get right mentally. Ronnie's one of the best in the business of making sure he has a good culture within his gym, and he's going to make sure Charlo gets right. And if he does so, listen, and Ronnie Shields was very clear this. When he came on the show, he said, I don't want all this stuff going on outside the ring. You have to get focused and locked in. And if he does so, if Charlo gets locked in, this is a good sign because Charlo being back locked in is a scary sight for the rest of boxing fans. So that's what I hope does happen. I think Charlo reuniting with Ronnie Shields is perfect for his career, and it is inspiring because I think if he can make this move happen, we are going to be in a position where we possibly see flashes of the old Charlo back in the ring again. So perfect move by reuniting with Ronnie Shields. Junto Nakatani revealed his 2026 hit list. Let me make this very clear. Junto Nakatani says he wants to fight Noel Inoue in 2026, and then if he gets through that fight, he wants to fight Bam Rodriguez. Let me make this very clear. If Junto Nakatani finds a way to go through 2026, knocking off the pound-for-pound great in Noel Inoue, and then on the back end of the year, moving on and fighting one of the pound-for-pound stars in boxing as well, in Bam Rodriguez, Junto Nakatani will have a legitimate case at being in the top 1, 2, or 3 of the pound-for-pound list in boxing. And might I add this, if he can pull that off, getting wins against Noel Inoue and Bam Rodriguez in one calendar year, that will be one of the greatest years in the history of boxing. And yes, I said that. You will talk about knocking off one of the icons of this generation in Noel Inoue and one of the future icons of boxing in Bam Rodriguez. If you get both those wins in one calendar year, this man deserves the flowers. And as I said this, that would be one of the greatest years in the history of boxing. Now, can he do it? That's to be determined, but I love the mindset of Junto Nakatani, and if he can get both those fights done in 2026, we will be talking about one of the biggest stars in boxing emerging by this time next year. So hopefully that fight gets done. It would be huge if he can actually accomplish that. Let's go over now into Carlos Adames. So 160, oh my goodness. I talked about this on Monday. Don't get me started on this again. 160 sucks. It is the worst weight class in boxing. There, I said it. I'm not going to go in depth on this. But anyways, Carlos Adames will be fighting Ammo Williams on the TO versus Shakur undercard January 31st. All right, interesting. I don't get this, all right? Let me give you guys an understanding as to why I'm confused here. Carlos Adames was upset at Turki Al-Sheikh. And supposedly that's what was holding up him doing unification with a guy like Janabek or Araceli Lara. And he didn't do the unification for either man. Obviously, Janabek's a joke as well, but whatever. Now Carlos Adames is going to go reunite with Turki Al-Sheikh and fight on the undercard. It doesn't make sense. I don't get what any of these guys are doing at 160. That's why it's such a train wreck. But then he's going to fight Ammo Williams. And when you look at 160, it's like, okay, there's not really anybody there. I mean, sure, you have some guys that like to see him fight, but Ammo it is. I think we know how this fight's going to go. Ammo's a good contender, but he's not a world champion. If he does it, he proved me wrong, and I'll say that very clearly in the show. Carlos Adames should easily win this fight. And I think Ammo's a fun, exciting fighter, but when you put him against those top guys, we see him not just pan out very well. There's just a gap between him and a legitimate world champion. You know, there's levels to the sport. It is what it is. And so I'm not too intrigued by this fight. Ammo Williams fighting Carlos Adames. We'll see what happens there. But yes, that's the fight. Going to go down on TO versus Shakur's undercard on January 31st. Here's an interesting thing. We might have some ducking alerts going down here. Lamont Roach says this. He intends to pursue a rematch with Gervonta Tank Davis or Isaac Pitbull Cruz in Washington, D.C. for his next bout. This is according to ProBox CEO Gary Jones. Now, Isaac Pitbull Cruz says this. He says he's turning to champions and elite contenders who will be more willing to fight in the center of the ring. Okay. I think we can say this quite confidently. Isaac Pitbull Cruz might be on duck alert. Listen, you just fought Lamont Roach, who I think if you're going to criticize anything, Lamont Roach probably fought not his strategy in that fight. Lamont Roach could have utilized his ring IQ, his boxing skills, and danced around the ring and won that fight easily against Pitbull Cruz. But what Lamont Roach did is he did step foot in the middle of the ring. He did exchange with Pitbull Cruz. So Pitbull Cruz coming out and saying he wants to fight champions or elite contenders who'll be more willing to fight in the center of the ring is bogus. If you're Isaac Pitbull Cruz, this is my take on that. I think you're avoiding Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach has now gone to 2 fights that were draws, both of which I do believe he won those fights, and both guys have now been ducking him. Tank Davis ducked Lamont Roach rematch. That's clear as day. And now you saw Pitbull Cruz clearly wants to duck Lamont Roach as well. Can we just get a rematch? This is boxing. Lamont Roach, hats off to you. Every single time you've gone to these draws this year, you want to get your get back right away. I respect that about him. But this is boxing. Why are these other counterparts not doing the same thing? If you go to a draw and it was a good competitive fight, don't you want your get back on that man? But yet Tank Davis goes running around and he runs away. Now Isaac Pitbull Cruz runs away. What are we doing, guys? Let's make the rematch happen. If you're Isaac Pitbull Cruz, you better re-sign that deal with Lamont Roach Jr. We need the rematch in 2026. Make it happen. Stop the ducking. Make the fight happen. Nick Ball, we have a fight announcement here. He will be defending his WBA featherweight title against Brandon Figueroa on February 7th in Liverpool. What the heck? All right. This always just baffles me about Nick Ball. I like Nick Ball. I honestly like Nick Ball. He is one of the most entertaining fighters in all boxing. He's represented British boxing great. Good dude as well. But what are these fights? Like, how many of you guys want to go out there and watch Nick Ball fight Brandon Figueroa? I know I don't. Can I be honest with you? I don't want to see this fight happen at all. I don't get it. I don't want to see it. Brandon Figueroa obviously lost his world championship to Stephen Koei Fulton. His follow-up fight after that was not the best fight in the world, very uninspiring. And now we're going to go get him a world championship shot against Nick Ball in London and Liverpool. Guess what's going to happen? Nick Ball is going to absolutely destroy him, like badly. It's not going to be a good fight. And so here we are. Nick Ball, once again, is not going to have a good fight on his resume. My biggest question is this. Can we start to unify these belts at 126? Like, what's going on? Can we stop just having bogus fights? I want unifications. Rafael Espinoza, you. Angelo Leo, you're newer to World Championship, but still, you. And then, of course, for Nick Ball, you need to go out there and unify. We need this stuff to start happening in 2026. February 7th, Nick Ball, you're fighting Brandon Figueroa. I don't like the fight. I'll watch it because you're entertaining Nick Ball, but we got to start moving this weight class around a little bit, all right? And speaking of the 126 weight class, let me go down here. We now have found out that let me find this right here. Shu Shu Carrington and Castro will be fighting for the full WBC championship. Stephen Koei Fulton has decided to vacate that 126 belt that he won against Brandon Figueroa, meaning the WBC interim title fight between Bruce Carrington and Carlos Castro will now be for the full vacant belt. Shu Shu Carrington and Castro will land on the January 31st Shakur card, meaning that January 31st card gets better and better on top of all of the great cards. We already discussed that. But yes, absolute great fight right there going to be going down. Bruce Carrington should win that fight. I'm glad he finally gets his chance at a world championship. He's earned it. I'm excited to see how he looks in that fight. But then he throws him into the picture. And that goes right back to what I just discussed. When we talk about 2026, when we talk about 2026, 126 needs to get moving. Nick Ball, Rafael Espinoza, Angelo Leo, and I believe soon to be Bruce Carrington. You four guys need to unify. Make the fights happen. And Bruce Carrington was on the show before and he talked about Nick Ball and the situation at hand, and he made it very clear. He wants to fight him. But Nick Ball was doing bad offers and so on and so forth. They didn't make that fight happen. Well, guess what? Both of you guys are fighting within a week of each other. Shu Shu on January 31st, Nick Ball on February 7th. Let me put these two things together for you real quickly. The fight I want to see at 126 in the calendar year of 2026 is Bruce Carrington fighting Nick Ball. Now, Bruce Carrington needs to take care of business on January 31st and defeat Castro. I think he will do so, and so let's pencil him in as the WBC World Champion for Bruce Carrington. Well, he's fighting January 31st. On February 7th, you have a fight between Nick Ball and Brandon Figueroa. I've already said this. Nick Ball will absolutely dismantle Brandon Figueroa. He'll retain his belt. The timeline works out perfectly. Both guys fight within a week of each other. You know what we need to do? We need Nick Ball, Bruce Carrington in 2026 to happen. 126 does not want to move. They're stagnant. They're waiting for Inoue. Guess what? Let us go out there and see some unifications. Earn the Inoue fight. And I know no better way than to see two belts on the line, Nick Ball's belt, Bruce Carrington's belt, book it for 2026, whether that's in the UK, USA, whatever. Make the fight happen. That's the fight to make happen. If all things fall into place, make that fight happen in 2026. I think it would be massive. We need to see Nick Ball and Bruce Carrington. Beautiful fight to make. Make it happen in 2026. Viddal Riley, Aloy's junior purse bids have now been delayed. The purse bids for the British cruiserweight title fight between champion Viddal Riley and mandatory Aloy's Jr. has been delayed until January 14th at the request of both parties. I think this fight should get down. I don't see anybody stopping it, and I'm excited for this fight. When I've said this before, when you talk about British fights to make at cruiserweight, this is one of the more exciting fights at cruiserweight. A lot of fights at cruiserweight suck. I don't want to see them. This is one that's intriguing. It's probably one of the only fights you can make at cruiserweight that does not include a world champion. That's actually intriguing to myself. So hopefully this fight gets made shortly. I don't think it's going to be an issue. By January 14th, we're going to have results. Here's the interesting one. Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua 2 could be booked for 2026. Daniel Dubois' trainer, Tony Sims, has recently opened the door for a potential Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua rematch. He said this exact quote, "It's a possibility." That's what he'll be looking at, getting back into a big fight. So will it happen? I don't know. But what I do know is this. Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois is a fight I do want to see. I said this all the way back last year when AJ got knocked out badly there. And here's why. When you talk about heavyweight fighters, anything can happen inside the ring, especially two power punchers. I know a lot of people want to make fun of AJ. I get it. He did build himself up in my eyes, but look at that fight. Rewatch it. When you talk about a power punch like Daniel Dubois, if you do get clipped, guess what? It throws the whole fight off. It is what it is. This is boxing. Don't write a man off because of that one instance. I think when we talk about this fight right now, it makes perfect sense. Daniel Dubois coming off his loss. Anthony Joshua obviously is going to come off of a win, hopefully, against Jake Paul. Why not make that fight happen if the Fury fight's not available for AJ? Why not? I think we all would want to see it. I think that fight was very entertaining at the very bare minimum. Even if you don't like Anthony Joshua, you cannot deny the fact that Dubois AJ was a fun fight to watch. It was very fun. And yes, Dubois beat him. But remember, AJ started to recover a little bit, even hurt Daniel Dubois, and then Daniel Dubois comes right back with a boxing punch and obviously sparks him out, knocks him out clean with one of the best KOs of 2025 or 2024. Sorry. That's a fight I want to see again. And I don't know about you guys. Let me know your thoughts, but I would like to see that fight happen. If you're AJ, why not run it back? It would sell out Wembley once again. Go make the fight happen. I'm all for it. I think it'd be a great fight to make. And so, yes, if we are these guys, let's go out there and make Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua happen in 2026. All right, couple more things before I let you guys go. If you guys have any more comments in the chat, make sure to place it there. I'll make sure to answer those as I go throughout the remainder of the show as well. And also, if you guys are tuning in on YouTube, make sure to smash that likes button. I always appreciate that. That helps tremendously with the show. Also, if you're tuning in on X or Facebook, hit that like button, share button. I always appreciate that as well, as it all helps with the show. And I greatly appreciate you guys for doing so. All right, let's get right back to this though. Keyshawn Davis news also. I know I talked about him briefly with the Richard Hitchins situation, but this other news is interesting. He is now split from Coach Bomac. Don't know about that. All right, here's what he said. I had to do a circle check after June, and everybody got deleted except for DB3. Now we have a whole new team, a whole new system. All right, I'm split on this. Keyshawn Davis needed to make changes. Right here was not good. And if you're not right here, things are not going to go well in the ring. I've always said that, okay? But Bomac probably wasn't the problem. And why do I say that? Well, look at Bomac. He did quite a good job this year. All of his fighters are thriving, for the most part. If you are Keyshawn Davis, I hope you're not putting the blame on Bomac. I think you need to make sure you get yourself right, maybe clean up your circle, but was Bomac really the problem? I don't know. Now, if he was, then maybe this is a good move, but we'll see what happens. I do believe he's going to go with Shakur's team now and that whole situation, but we'll see what happens. But yes, he is no longer with Coach Bomac, according to these reports, so we'll see what happens there. O'Shaquie Foster has chosen to remain at 130 pounds and has therefore vacated his WBC interim lightweight title. Foster, however, will be afforded special privileges at 135. All right, so here's what happens. I gave my thoughts last week. I thought it was disgusting how the WBC moved, but guess what? We're now in a position where O'Shaquie Foster was probably paid something or something happened to vacate the interim so that the WBC can go back to the original interim and Foster goes back down to 130. Essentially meaning that all the WBC did was just make this fight look more appealing on paper and then nothing really happened. That's the way the WBC works. Yeah, that's why I don't like them. But whatever. For O'Shaquie Foster, he's not going to go be the mandatory for Shakur Stevenson anymore. Cross all those green plans out of the way. I never thought this was going to be a good fight either. But O'Shaquie Foster's back at 130. And I said this on Monday's show. Who do I want to see O'Shaquie Foster fight next? Raymond Ford. Why not? That's the fight that needs to happen. Navarrete, Sugar Nunez are unifying in the early parts of 2026. The winner of that fight has to face Charlie Suarez. Okay, so there's two of the belts locked up right there. Then at 130, there's one big fight to make. Why not go fight Ray Ford? And you could unify with somebody else, sure, whatever. But why not go fight Ray Ford? Big fight to make. If you're O'Shaquie Foster, two Americans, great fight, stylistically a great fight. If I'm them, I'm looking at that fight. I'm saying, you know what? Let's book it. Let's make it happen. Raymond Ford, O'Shaquie Foster, 2026. That's the fight I would like to see have happen. All right. Last thing for today's show, unless I see any more comments coming in the chat, is this. And this is a very interesting fight situation right here. As I talked about already, I preview guys the fight going down in Dubai, going down tomorrow and Friday. But Deontay Wilder was there, as was many other boxers. But Deontay Wilder, Derek Chisora were there, and they faced off, very heated face off as well. And it was confusing to me because previously, maybe an hour or two beforehand, Wilder did some interviews and he confirmed, yes, him and Usyk are in negotiations. That fight's going to happen. And then he's over there facing off Chisora. So I don't know what's all going on right there. If I were to say what's the best fight to make, I'd say Chisora and Wilder make a lot more sense. I think Wilder is more, equipped for that fight. Maybe he could actually win that fight, maybe. And on top of that, he's earned maybe a Chisora type fight. Obviously, we can all know that he didn't earn an Usyk fight, but if Usyk wants it, I'm okay with it. But whatever. The point is this. It got me thinking. Wilder's always going to have a big name. Whatever happens against Usyk, he's probably going to get knocked out. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Chisora in the future, though. I mean, both these guys, Chisora's obviously a British heavyweight icon, and Wilder's done the same thing for this generation of boxing. I would not be against seeing these two guys fight. Now, I think the Usyk fight's going to happen, so like I said, I think it was kind of pointless to the whole face-off now. But if they fight each other in February, March for Wilder and Usyk, maybe the back end of 2026, Wilder comes back and fights Chisora in the final fight for both guys. Just throwing it out there. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but obviously they did square off and they had a heated face-off, and we'll see what happens from there. But I'm not against the fight. Never really considered it. But if those two guys want to fight each other, obviously two veteran guys, last hurrah fight, make it happen. Not against that whatsoever. So that's what I've got in store for you guys on today's show. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in. I will be back live most likely Monday. Now, I will give you guys a little bit of a heads up. I'm making a lot of changes to the show. If you guys have noticed, the past 2 or 3 weeks have kind of been a little bit different. I used to do a daily show. I'm now transitioning into more of a day or two show per week. Now, I'm going to announce the exact schedule, but there is a new schedule for my shows, and everything is going to be coming out in probably the next week or so. I've got a lot of announcements. It might not go into play until 2026, but a lot of changes are going to happen. I'm still doing boxing, so don't worry about that. We'll be on live 1 or 2 times a week, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But changes are going to be happening. I do plan on being back live on Monday, though, so make sure to tune in on that show. And maybe if I roll out the plan a little bit earlier, probably Sunday, just to give you guys a little sneak preview on that. But we'll be getting to that. I'll be announcing that on the show, what the new schedule is going to look like in the near future. But with that being said, I hope you guys all have a blessed rest of you guys' night. I know my time is still Thursday. Some of you guys are tuning in. Probably it's Friday for you guys. So have a great rest of you guys' Thursday. Enjoy your Friday, whatever the case may be. Also enjoy you guys' weekend. I'll be back live with you guys very shortly. May God bless you guys all. Have a blessed rest of you guys' day and weekend as well. And I'll see you guys back shortly. God bless y'all. And with that being said, shoes out. God bless you guys.